Getting real tired of tourist season. No offense, but you guys are lowering the bar.
So when I made my last video on the Fallout show, I anticipated a lot more hate comments and dislikes, as I'm aware my opinion is in the minority since the new fans outnumber the original fans. To my surprise though, I actually got a ton of love on that video, so perhaps my opinion is not so in the minority as I once thought. In this video, I'm going to respond to a lot of the comments, specifically the hate comments, and disprove them. The comment that made me want to make this video will be the main show of this video, and I'm sure you can look at the chapters of this video and see where it is, because it's a dissertation length reply to my video. So let's get into it. Emil Paliarulo is the one that advises the TV writers about the lore. That enough is telling. Too true. You really can't expect anyone who thinks Starfield is the best creation from Bethesda to know anything about the lore of the stuff they're working on. If you wanted it to be exactly like the games, why not just watch someone play the game? It's like any adaptation. They have to change some stuff for the purposes of the show. This is one of the best video game adaptations ever made, and definitely an overall step in the right direction. First of all, I never once argued the show should be retreading already established stories or retelling any of the games. I do want a new story with a new plot and characters and locations. All I wanted simply was for them to stay true to the lore of the games. Riddle me this: what does an anti-feralization medicine bring to the show? They had to change that for the purposes of the show? And no, it is definitely not one of the best video game adaptations for the fact that it does not adapt any of the lore and makes up its own. All this, but not smart enough to remember Fallout 3 Rivet City got a shoot him in the head questline from Mr. Crowley. Shake my head. All this, but not smart enough to listen to the intro or read the disclaimer that the video is about the classic games and Fallout New Vegas, not Fallout 3. And the thing I was referencing is the joking comments ghoul NPCs make about being zombies in Fallout 1 and 2, making fun of the concept. Stereotypes. You know, you shoot the zombie in the head, except for ghouls aren't actually zombies. And in the games, it's never established that you have to kill them with a headshot. And I'm pretty sure in one of the original Fallout games, it makes fun of this concept too. Like it's a joke. Reaching, not even once. I disagree with the title of your video. Okay. First time I've ever said this. Your opinion is just wrong. Still a good video, but I simply disagree. Incorrect, as all I previously presented were objective lore inconsistencies in the show. Thanks for the compliment though. So this was a comment chain where someone commented asking why they keep oddly inserting incest into the show, which I agree, it's weird and disgusting. But this person responds in response to his comment saying, "It's simple mathematics. That's why. In order to reproduce in small communities, population is 100% to be done by incest. No matter someone's perversion, look at it." No idea what that means. Besides, that humans also reproduced by incest, if you didn't know, so far. But it is forbidden by God in later stages of humanity after flood event. So, the pool of people required to avoid incest is 500 people. And vaults were created with this in mind, each having around 1,000 dwellers. So no, it's not an actual issue in universe, and is in fact just one of the showrunner's sick perversions. Stop being a nerd and be happy it's not like Halo. You're right, it's not like the Halo show, because at least that show was separate from the game's canon. Someone commented that the problem with the TV show is that it isn't even Fallout. And in response, this show fan says, "How is it not Fallout exactly? It's made in the same universe, has the same feel as many of the games. A few chronological errors happen, sure, but that's true for the games too. It's a TV show based in a game verse. It's not going to be a perfect adaptation because you can't really perfectly adapt multiple choice RPGs to a single choice live action movie perfectly." Well, this refute that it's true to Fallout because it's set in the Fallout universe and that's enough is totally idiotic. The Acolyte, the sequels, they're all in the Star Wars universe. Does it make them good continuations or adaptations of the older media? Absolutely not. No one said that it had to be perfect. Errors happening to non-important aspects of the lore can be overlooked, but your attempt to downplay the errors is moot, as it rewrites major lore points like nuking Shady Sands and destroying the NCR during the events of Fallout New Vegas, where the NCR is at its most powerful point in the entire series. It felt like Fallout, a good continuation to after New Vegas. Was it perfect? No. But was Fallout New Vegas perfect? Also no. Everything has flaws. I personally love the show, love the characters and world building. Nothing is perfect, but certain things are definitely better than others, and in the case of Fallout New Vegas in the show, it's not even comparable. It was not a good continuation of New Vegas, and I don't even know how someone who has played the game can even claim this. Not to mention that it basically retcons the entirety of Fallout 1, and with the way it's going, looks to be retconning the events of Fallout New Vegas. And the show detractors have always been consistent. It is the show fans that are inconsistent with their point of view, and grasp at straws to justify glaring issues with the show. He goes on to say that the comment wasn't about how I disliked it, and that he didn't respond to any of my points, but then says, it was this comment in particular upset that it took place in the same universe and canon as the rest of Fallout. First of all, his claim here that I disagree with this comment is just not true. I have a problem with it being in the same universe and canon as the rest of the games when it doesn't stay true to the lore of the games and butchers the stories that are told in them. But he goes on to say, which is a good thing regardless of how you spin it, as that has been the largest complaint by every other adaptation movie which ignores canon. The show did ignore canon. That's the point. It was canonized into the series while also ignoring the canon, which is the reason why the retcons and inconsistencies are a big deal. If it was non-canon, then it would just be a shitty adaptation that could be forgotten about. But no, it's being imposed into the lore of the games as well, and overwriting established lore with its inferior lore. I'm going to blur this guy's username simply due to the fact that he deleted his comment after I replied to it, and I don't want to start a witch hunt on a guy that obviously saw the error in his argument and wanted to remove it. Regardless, I wanted to feature it in this video and respond to it. 70% justified and 30% who gives a shit? Like seriously, the skyscrapers bit is not unrealistic. Have you seen comparisons of the city of Beijing of now from 50 years ago? Great video though. The point in that section was not that they couldn't have built skyscrapers, though I do find it unlikely they would divert so much of their limited manpower to do a seemingly useless task. It is merely that they wouldn't feasibly need to. Their population is small and their land is vast. Beijing, on the other hand, is 25 times smaller than California, and has 20 times the population of the NCR. Therefore, skyscrapers make sense, as their land is small and their population is huge, and the people need places to live and work. The NCR has the opposite problem. They have too much land for the amount of people they have, and we see in the games that they're desperately trying to keep up and occupy all the land they have been conquering. So now, time for the main show. The point-by-point dissection of all of my claims in my original video. Or that's what it's supposed to be. I'm not telling you that you have to like the show, and I agree, it's not an especially great piece of television. It jumbles and butchers the lore in parts, and in others, it's just doing entirely its own thing that seems a bit out of place in the Fallout universe. However, I do have to disagree on a lot of the points of your video. Honestly, no offense, but you sound like an NCR fanboy who's pissed that Shady Sands got nuked, and let that ruin the whole show for you. I'll detail my reasons below. People can have their birthday parties whenever. Just because you prefer to have them later in the day doesn't mean this kid's parents want to. Parties take a lot of effort, before, during, and after. That entire section of the video was, but I'd never do that. First of all, I wouldn't say I'm an NCR fanboy. More like a fanboy of the original games and Fallout New Vegas. I like all the factions, from the original Brotherhood of Steel, to the NCR, to the Enclave. Here he claims, in my first section, about the time the bombs dropped on the West Coast being retconned, is incorrect, as other people have birthdays all the time at the sunrise, and I was just saying, I'd never do that. without actually engaging with the evidence that I presented. I established in the video I made when the bombs were canonically dropped, which was specifically 9:13 a.m. on the East Coast, and the war ended at 9:47 a.m. Given that the West Coast is roughly 2 hours behind the East Coast, this would place the bombs dropping at around 7 a.m. on October 23rd. According to a quick Google search, 7 a.m. in October is when the sun is rising. Now take a look at these screenshots from the show. Does it look like the sun is just rising, or does it look midday? Point number 2. A lot of the Brotherhood members are born into the Brotherhood. Some members are brought in, but those are much fewer. It's likely that the squires in Fallout 4, who are children, were aspirants first, and managed to be promoted to squire. As for why we never see a squire with a Brotherhood soldier, Bethesda has made it abundantly clear that they will not allow children to be put in direct danger. Keep in mind, power armor is meant to make the person a walking tank. How many people do you truly need for a simple expedition? The second rebuttal he makes is totally unsubstantiated. He cites no lore to back up his claim, and simply says, well, maybe squires were aspirants first. And his claim about Bethesda not putting children into direct danger is false as well, as there are children in settlements in the Wasteland in Fallout 4, and if you side with anyone besides the Brotherhood, you can literally blow up their airship with all of the children squire inside. As for the excuse for the duo teams being, how many people do you need for a simple expedition? Well, according to Bethesda, a whole fire team. But this isn't even a simple expedition. This is an important mission to track down an Enclave scientist and secure cold fusion energy. Point number 3. 100 rad per second could just mean he has 100 rad points, and the Geiger counter is picking that up because it's checking every second. That's how Geiger counters work. Also, in the original 2 Fallout games, you needed to equip the Geiger counter to check your rads. It wasn't a passive ability like in the 3D games. Lucy's Pip-Boy probably didn't always have the Geiger counter active. Same with the rest of the vault, which is why it only detected rads when she activated it. So this is complete nonsense, considering that the Geiger counter is built into Lucy's Pip-Boy for one, so it's not the Geiger counter from the isometric games, because in the isometric games it's an entirely different separate device, whereas in the show it's obviously working from her Pip-Boy. And no, that is not how Geiger counters work actually. The static tick that plays from Geiger counters is caused when a particle of ionizing radiation passes through the Geiger-Muller tube, and through that, doses per second is read. A Geiger counter reads the amount of radiation in the air emanating from said object, not in said object. So your claim that it just means that he has 100 rad points is total nonsense, because it's not reading his internal radiation, it's reading the radiation in the air. To do what you are claiming, you'd have to insert probes or sensors directly into the specimen to read internal radiation levels. It's pretty funny how confidently wrong some of these show defenders are. A link to a video explaining a Geiger counter's functionality will be in the description, since you clearly need to brush up on how they work. Lucy had just been stabbed by her husband. I don't know if you've ever been stabbed before, but it hurts a lot. It is unreasonable to assume she is thinking straight at this time. The fact that she went to get a stim pack, which as you said, boosts healing and acts as a painkiller, makes sense when you realize that being stabbed hurts. Also, just saying, look at the stim pack wiki page, which has the lore of stim packs. It states that it is a combination of pre-war chems that accelerated the healing process, often to the point of almost instantaneously closing non-severe injuries. So yeah, that part of the video is just wrong. Sorry. This point either intentionally misses the point I'm making or is just retarded. I was not making an argument that she shouldn't have used a stim pack. I was critiquing how she didn't use any actual medical supplies other than hopped up painkillers. And in your hubris, you defeat your second point on your own. You stated it was a combination of chems that accelerated the healing process and could even close non-severe injuries. I don't know if you have ever been stabbed before, but the injury Lucy sustained was not a non-severe injury. It was fatal, and she could have easily and should have in the show bled to death, as she did not use any necessary medical equipment like the bandages in her first aid kit to quell the bleeding. And if being stabbed with a 12-inch knife isn't fatal, why does the Brotherhood not use a stim pack on Maximus's friend when a razor cuts his leg? Yeah, the Prydwen does have infinite power. They took a fusion reactor, likely from Rivet City, to actually power it. Fusion tech in our world is just beginning to be a thing. Keep in mind, a single fusion core can keep a building running for hundreds of years. Imagine what a whole reactor could power. Yes, that is the explanation Bethesda provides for how the Prydwen stays powered. However, in your obvious infinite knowledge of Bethesda Fallout, surely you are aware that they require coolant to keep the reactor going, which they are in a severe drought of at the moment.
Keeping the Prydwen hovering like this is putting a tremendous strain on the ship's propulsion systems. I can stay ahead of the repairs, and we have plenty of fuel to keep the fusion reaction sustained, but we're short on reactor coolant.
I'll be on the lookout. Don't worry.
Well, you can look all you want. You're not gonna find cans of the stuff laying around the Commonwealth. Here, take this list. It details exactly what you need to make a can of this special coolant. Find the materials, whip some of it up at any of the chemistry stations on the ship, and bring them to me. Pretty simple. If the coolant's good, then I'll even pay you for it, as per our retrieval compensation policy. Anyway, I guess that's it for now. Good luck.
As for how it stays up, it functions exactly like a Zeppelin, because it is one. The large balloons we see in the Prydwen in Fallout 4 are full of hydrogen gas, which allows the ship to float. Mind you, I never attacked the structural integrity, despite seeing actual professionals pick apart why it would never stay in the sky. So this is an obvious deflection to dilute my original point in my video. I will note, however, that the envelopes on Zeppelins are made of fabric on the outside, which enables the heat to lift the ship up. And as you can see in game, no such concept is implemented. The envelope on the Prydwen is completely steel. Also, there's no reason to suspect that they're going back and forth. Maxon's Brotherhood, and it is clearly Maxon's Brotherhood, was likely called back by the other elders of the Brotherhood. The West Coast Brotherhood has been struggling for some 80 years now. They likely heard of the success that Maxon's Brotherhood has been having, and decided to call a portion of or all of them back. This is something the real-life military does. While I do denote in my video that they are clearly Maxon's Brotherhood due to the Prydwen's presence and T-60 power armor, a recent episode in Season 2 of the Fallout show shows that they are actually not the East Coast Brotherhood, and that they are a completely separate and new chapter, which muddies the water even further because, well, why is the Prydwen with them and why do they have T-60 power armor? The supposed explanation now is that the Prydwen was a pre-war vehicle, and that's how the Brotherhood had it. They found schematics for it. So unfortunately, me and this commenter were wrong for drawing the logical conclusion that they were the East Coast Brotherhood. But I'm not sure why he thinks the West Coast Brotherhood hailed them back, considering they have seemingly all but vanished. Also, the Railroad and Institute endings were so poorly done in the game, I'm pretty sure Bethesda was never going to consider them canon. That leaves 2 of 3 endings, where the Brotherhood survives. No argument is made here, but I agree and would go further to say even the Brotherhood ending was poorly done, as was the Minutemen ending. First, things get added and expanded in all fictional universes. Things get moved around in all fiction universes. He just said the same thing twice. But his point here is that things get moved around all the time, so you shouldn't talk about it. Once again, no point made. He is simply saying I should ignore when the showrunners fail to remain true to the source material because, well, other medias do it all the time. Also, the Master didn't want to attack every vault all at once. He was still running experiments and variations of his mutants, altering the FEV, its dosage, and other things went in the vat with the human, etc. As for why we never find or Explorer 31, 32, and 33, Interplay straight up just didn't have the vault there. So his point here is that the Master didn't want to attack every vault at once. Okay, when did I say that he did? He moved in a wave across California in Fallout 1, obliterating everything in his wake. He didn't attack all at once, he went from one to the next. He seemingly dismisses my point that Lucy's vault would be in his sights because he was doing experiments. Which I hate to break it to you, he was also doing experiments when he marched his army all the way to Vault 13 if you let him. I've been saying in my video that he kidnapped people who were not fit for the FEV to experiment on or to do other tasks. However, even in those older games, they did state that there were vaults that were unknown. Anywhere you could go could have a vault under it. As for why these ones aren't well hidden, may I remind you that a nuclear bomb went off very recently? It's entirely possible there were structures around them keeping them hidden. After 200 plus years of no maintenance, things are much easier to break and blow away. Nuclear bombs have more destructive force than any other weapon conceived of by man. This argument is so stupid I don't even know if I should entertain it, but at last I shall. First of all, yes, there are unknown vaults that were hidden from prying eyes, like Vault 13, which is in the depths of a cave. Yet it goes on to be discovered without the Vault Dweller's intervention. Yet Lucy's vault that is just in the open gets overlooked. Second, this is from the point of view that now Shady Sands, the Master's Lair, and Lucy's vault are all within walking distance of each other. Even taking that into account, there is an obvious huge man-made pathway leading to the vault. But if you want to be intentionally dishonest and play devil's advocate, I'll pose the question to you. Why did the Enclave overlook Lucy's vault, considering they had a cheat sheet in Fallout 2? Again, the West Coast Brotherhood chapters have not been doing well lately. It's not unreasonable to assume that their population fell too low to sustain itself, and they had to recruit outsiders, as we saw in Vault 4. The outsiders have some weird rituals they like to perform. Any outsiders taken by the Brotherhood likely have similar beliefs and customs, and ended up integrating them into the Brotherhood's belief system. So, his first point is that the West Coast Brotherhood, which is completely absent from the show as he admitted earlier, because the chapter we see in the show is Maxon's chapter, which I guess is now not true, but they're obviously not the West Coast Brotherhood. But his claim that they would let in a bunch of outsiders and assimilate them is actually unreasonable to think if you know anything about the Brotherhood from the West Coast. And to go a step further, to allow them in and not have them fully assimilate, considering we see in Fallout New Vegas that the vast majority of the Brotherhood are in favor of simply dying out in their bunker, then opening it up to the waste through Veronica's personal companion quest. Also, we never get to truly see what it is like in the Brotherhood because of gameplay limitations. The second point is just complete nonsense. What gameplay limitations? We spend time in the Brotherhood and in their dwellings. We have countless terminal entries and countless NPCs we can talk to familiarize ourselves with the faction, their traditions, and their motives. These gameplay limitations you mentioned are made up to dismiss anyone calling out the mischaracterization of the Brotherhood of Steel's portrayal in the TV show. Also, Paladins are an exceptionally high rank. Not only do they wield a lot of power and influence, they are incredibly few in number. If you got to any Brotherhood location in Fallout 3 or Fallout 4 before level 50, you might see 2 Paladins. Sentinels are even higher ranked than the Paladins, and there have only been 2 in canon, the Sole Survivor and Sentinel Lions. I'll concede the point that a Sentinel not being in the show is fine. My last video was off the cuff, and I did not have a script in front of me while I was ranting. But the reasoning he gives for there being no Paladins makes no sense. They are not a rare breed as he describes. They are fewer in number compared to the Knights, though that does not mean they are some sort of hidden underbelly of the Brotherhood. Paladins lead expeditions and fire teams in the field. His claim about Fallout 4 is explicitly wrong, as the first Brotherhood member you are likely to meet is a Paladin that goes by the name of Paladin Danse. As for Fallout 3, he is also wrong, as I remember there being a Paladin you can meet right off the rip when you get to the Citadel that you can recruit to be a follower. The Enclave has been destroyed several times at this point, first at the oil rig and again at Raven Rock. It wasn't that he didn't know who the Enclave was, it was that he didn't know they were still alive, because they had been killed twice now. You'd assume someone was dead too. Total dishonesty here. The soldier in question does not exclaim, "The Enclave is still around?" or something like this. He goes, "The Enclave is real?" which is clearly intentional dishonesty to claim that he meant the former. Assaultrons were produced by Robco Industries, the same company who produced every robot and most every piece of technology we see in the game. You're right, there are no Assaultrons in any game before Fallout 4, however prototypes have to exist of everything. Not only that, but the Assaultron design was sold to the US military. The US military had a presence all across America before the war. It's entirely possible that Assaultron was a prototype, or was one of the few shipped to the West Coast to help quell riots, as these were a massive issue for the USA at the time. Well, first of all, I'll make the note that the mass rioting is a Bethesda edition. There's no clear evidence that there were mass riots before the war. But back to the main point. Once again, there's no argument here. His refute is simply making up headcanon with no basis in the lore. Assaultrons were prevalent all across America despite you never seeing them in the original games. Well, I guess I can't argue with that, can I? Again, power armor is a wearable tank. It has hydraulics built into the frame which allows the user to move faster and to be stronger in spite of the immense weight of the armor. This is Fallout 1 lore. It's funny that he includes his claim is from Fallout 1 lore, yet does not cite which bit of lore he is referring to, because he probably hasn't even played the isometric Fallouts. But yes, power armor is described as a wearable tank, as hyperbole, because of its insane defensive mechanisms and limited maneuverability. That does not literally mean it's a tank, and if it did as you were suggesting, why would the army still be using tanks alongside it? In game, you aren't dealing massive damage with unarmed attacks and power armor unless you are spec'd into unarmed skills. This point is so mind-numbingly idiotic that if it was not a dissertation-length comment, I'd think it's bait. Again, that building has been destroyed for a while now. The fact that the building is a ruin is majorly irrelevant, as the object destroying it is a literal pebble. Titus was on his back, panicking. He also wasn't punching the bear, he was trying to swat it away. So this claim is just a downright falsehood. I showed screenshots from the show in my original video, but since that evidently was not enough for some low IQ individuals, I'll play the scene. He also wasn't punching the bear.
He also wasn't punching the bear.
Hydraulics don't work in arching motions like that, unless specifically designed for that. And if they're designed to move in an arching motion, they're horribly ineffective in a straight push motion, which is much more useful for power armor. The hydraulic capabilities that he knows oh so much about, despite not knowing how to spell hydraulics, are moot, as when Maximus throws the brick 3 miles into the ocean, he throws it with an arching motion. So I guess when Titus is boxing the bear with arching motions, I guess the hydraulics are designed for straight push motion. And then whenever Maximus is using the same suit of power armor, they're all of a sudden designed for arching motions.
Oh, right, yeah, of course.
As for the rocket boosters, that's just fun show stuff. And it doesn't really impact the lore at all. Sure, it's not a jetpack like Fallout 4, but the tech is still present in lore. It's just been adapted by the Brothers of Steel to make it more functional in combat. I'm sure a giant backpack full of fuel is a fairly easy target for whatever wants to shoot you. Fun show stuff actually does impact the lore. As for one, the whole point of power armor is that it's lacking maneuverability. But assuming that his made-up headcanon is what Supreme God Emperor Todd intended, did the Brotherhood think up this technology? and put it into effect by remodeling every piece of power armor they had in the 9 years before the show while they were flying over to California? Or did Titus get an early access beta code for the prototype? It's ironic that someone commented that I was reaching in my original video, when this is the type of stuff people who defend the garbage show spin up. Even in the games, ghouls can take dozens of shots to put down. Keep in mind how addicted the ghoul is to chems, and how frequently he uses them. He might be both too decayed and too drugged to feel or care about getting shot. This is something we see in real life. People on large amounts of extreme drugs can take several shots to take down. Also, shooting anything in the head is a great way to kill it. The head is usually where the brain is, which is like the CPU for the whole body.
I didn't know that. You're telling me now for the first time.
Dozens of shots? Dozens? Also, it's pretty funny how at the end of this point, he misrepresents my argument by making it seem like I'm complaining about the fact that a headshot kills a ghoul in the show, when in fact that is not what I'm arguing against at all. And I'm actually complaining about the fact that the show treats this as the only way to kill a ghoul, which is categorically incorrect. Nice try though. Apart from boss enemy encounters, which are most prevalent in Bethesda's Fallout, which are not the ones in question, ghouls in fact do not take dozens of shots to kill, and are fundamentally the same as humans in every aspect other than their outward appearance, and their anti-aging effects. This argument is basically like Legate Lanius takes 300 shots to kill in gameplay, so that must mean in lore, every human is that durable. It is obvious that this commenter conflates gameplay mechanics and lore interchangeably when it fits his argument. Also, his claim that it's the drugs that are making him numb to pain while he's getting shot is moot, because the ghoul is just fine after. He doesn't bleed out or go to any length to heal his injuries. So no, it's not just because he was high on drugs. A ghoul likely has significantly more radiation coming off of them than most other things. Also, keep in mind, you aren't getting constantly irradiated in any of the games. In fact, on the West Coast, it seems most of the radiation is gone. In Fallout 1 and 2, radiation is very rarely on the surface, and in New Vegas, it's not a frequent threat at all. This argument is defeated by itself. Go stand next to a normal ghoul in any Fallout game. Is your Geiger counter ticking? Your Geiger counter in game most likely only picks up on fatal radiation levels, which is why it doesn't when you're around the ghoul, and isn't constantly clicking while you're walking around. Either way, no matter how you slice it, a normal ghoul's radiation level is the same or comparable to the normal radiation level of the wasteland. I have a feeling that having your skin rot off and your internal organs cease to function properly might drive someone a little bit insane. Most of the chems in Fallout are pre-war medications, often dealing with pain management. And yeah, the ghouls in game never telling you they take chems does make sense. There aren't many ghoul companions. Hancock does take drugs. We know this because he does tell us. Raoul doesn't say it, but considering how many drugs we find on the randoms we kill, how unreasonable is it to think he's just bumming a Med-X off a dead fiend every once in a while? Sharon was basically lobotomized into only following the person who holds his contract. He's basically feral the entire time we have him. Almost never speaking, only ever killing. The cure to feralization isn't a cure. It's a stave off. Again, it's most likely just a mix of painkillers and antipsychotics. The rest of the ghouls you meet in the games are citizens of a town or vendors in said town. Would you just randomly tell your neighbor all of your medications? Would you tell your customers? No, you wouldn't. Also, inhalants have been shown to be developed and produced post-war. Jet was invented by a kid shortly before Fallout 2. Also, keep in mind that no one was ghoulified when the bombs dropped. It happened months, if not years after, as their body's response to likely low-grade radiation poisoning. And even if he did get ghoulified within a few months after the bombs fell, yeah, it makes sense that they could last a long time. Just like with Lucy earlier, if you're in pain, it's a pretty good idea to take a painkiller. If you're hearing voices or feeling an overwhelming desire to hurt others, it makes sense to take an antipsychotic. Also, diseases aren't full speed ahead. They take time to progress, and they get worse over time. Also, drugs get less effective the more you use them. It's called a tolerance. This one's a doozy. Firstly, going feral as a ghoul is not going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. It's an actual degradation of the brain, assumingly caused by prolonged radiation exposure, as hinted at in the games. Second, this bit about how the medicine being pre-war and is just a painkiller makes zero sense, as the people making it are obviously making it specifically to fight feralization, which is why they're surrounded by captive ghouls in their compound, and once again, you are making pure headcanon. What we do know is that it's being produced now for ghouls, and ghouls did not exist pre-war. Therefore, the logical conclusion to draw is that it would not have been produced pre-war. Hancock takes normal chems to get high. Never once does he mention it's to stop his feralization. Raoul, you are casting meaningless speculation on without presenting any facts or claims based in reality. Finally, Sharon being bummed out or stupid does not equate to being feral, as mentioned prior. He is correct about it being a stave-off and not a cure, but that is purely semantical, as most people knew I was referring to the treatment medicine that prevents feralization. No, I would not expect random ghouls to tell me if they had to take medicine to not go feral. What I would expect, however, is if all of the companions listed before would tell their fabled travel companion, hey, I thought maybe you should know I have to take this medicine every once in a while or I'll become a brain-dead feral ghoul who wants to rip your skin off. I don't know, surely I'm the illogical one for thinking they would do this, right? I'm not sure why he starts talking about inhalants being made pre-war and post-war, as if that has any relevance to my claim about the medicine having to be made pre-war, because not once do I say the medicine has to be pre-war because it's an inhalant. I say the medicine has to be pre-war because if it isn't, every single ghoul that turned into a ghoul when the bombs dropped would be feral, which is obviously not the case because we meet several ghouls that come from pre-war America that have lived 200 years, including the one in the show. And he also plays semantics when he's talking about ghouls don't turn feral instantly, because obviously when people talk about ghouls that turned into ghouls from the bombs dropping, don't mean they literally turned into ghouls instantaneously, and you know that. This is clearly a bad faith argument that is trying to cast doubt on my legitimacy in my original video by playing a semantic game. But if you want to get into brass tacks, in Fallout 3, a Bethesda game which you love so much, when you activate the nuke in Megaton, the inhabitants turn into ghouls instantly. So according to Bethesda, it is an instantaneous event. You clearly don't know what feralization is, considering you're bringing up antipsychotics and painkillers. It is not a mental condition or a disease. It is your brain literally melting, kind of like dementia. Ferals aren't just crazy schizos, they are husks of people. The gulpers of Fallout 4 in the show are clearly not the same, just similar. Also, just saying, a creature with a huge mouth that likes to eat things would likely be called a gulper. Think largemouth bass. In Fallout 4, they are mutated salamanders. In the show, they are an effed up science experiment, mutating presumably human DNA, likely trying to give humans the ability to regenerate the way lizards and salamanders do. Like most Vault-Tec experiments, the result was something that wasn't salamander, wasn't human, and certainly wasn't happy. We see this happen in other vaults too, like in Vault 22. B. How was Vault 87 a retcon? The FEV was developed by Westech for the USA government, originally as the Pan Immunity Viron project. After some weird stuff you can read yourself, it got changed to the Force Evolutionary Virus project. It was still under control of the US government, which was puppeted by the Enclave, which had connections to Vault-Tec. It's never stated in any of the games that the FEV was exclusively a West Coast thing. Matter of fact, the Master didn't even find the FEV in a Westech facility. He found it in the Mariposa military base. The military also had some very close ties to Vault-Tec. Several of the experiments Vault-Tec did were for the military to try and make super soldiers, like Vault 92 played noises to subliminally drive its inhabitants mad. in an experiment by the military to try and produce super soldiers. Here you clearly lack the knowledge to know what a retcon is. You sound surprised that a retcon has an explanation for it in the game Bethesda is retconning it into. As for your explanation to what the gulper was in the show and how it came about, there's no argument to be made. However, a creature with a huge mouth that likes to eat things would likely be called a gulper. Sure, it was just a coincidence and not an intentional callback to a creature in the games called the exact same thing. As for you asking how Vault 87 was a retcon, I'll explain. In the original isometric games, the only place FEV experiments were taking place was at the Mariposa military base. You can go, well, Bethesda said Vault-Tec was also working with the military and held FEV experiments too on the East Coast, and yes, that is what they said, and that is, by definition, a retcon. Just because it has an explanation for it does not mean it is not a retcon. Here's the definition since you clearly have a hard time understanding it. Mariposa is the only place FEV experiments were taking place. Bethesda wanted super mutants in the whole freak show lineup of the original games, so they introduced a piece of new information, which was Vault 87 was also doing FEV experiments, so they're on the East Coast now too. That imposes a different interpretation of the information presented in Fallout 1, which was the FEV testing and super mutants were exclusive to only the West Coast. This is going to be a long one. Brace yourselves, guys. What? You didn't even say anything. Well, if you knew the lore, you would know T-60 power armor is only present on the East Coast. It's not surprising that you want to know that, since considering these replies, you only have knowledge of Fallout 3 and 4, which are both Bethesda entries on the East Coast. The whole New California Republic was a conglomerate of nation-states that decided to band together under one flag. It's more of a confederacy than anything. This is just blanketly false. While it is true that it has some nation-states under its banner that function as nation-states or autonomous zones, it is not true that NCR full states operate the same way. The NCR has a universal currency and a fully fleshed out national economy. They have civil laws, court systems, immigration laws, criminal laws, and military laws. It's safe to say that the NCR is a fully fleshed out nation.
Safe to say.
And your logic is deeply flawed. Is the United States a conglomerate of nation states because it is in possession of territories like the US Virgin Islands? It makes sense that they would move their capital or maybe, I don't know, expand it. So I think the point he's making here is that they moved their capital to a completely new location and named it the exact same thing as their last capital. As I don't think he is literally saying they hauled every building in Shady Sands to the Los Angeles ruins and plopped them down. This is complete nonsense, as the NCR for one would not decide on a new capital and name it the same thing as their last one. That would be comparable to the US moving their capital to Arkansas or some other state and retaining the title of it as Washington, D.C. Also, call me crazy, but we never see Lucy and Maximus walk the whole way to Shady Sands.
You're batshit insane!
We just see them arrive at the crater. How is that map any kind of accurate? A simple Google search will tell you that the Shady Sands we see in the show is in the ruins of Los Angeles, so unfortunately, the map is correct. Also note that the NCR by the time of New Vegas is barely functional and riddled with corruption. So a fully industrialized society of several states with a huge scale military fighting back the Legion, the second biggest faction in the known wasteland, second only to the NCR themselves, is accordingly to you, barely functional. It's true that they are spread thin, but what we see in the Mojave is a frontier, and they are the most advanced and strongest faction up to that point. You obviously have not played the game and have just read that the politicians are corrupt and the army is spread thin on the front line and assume that meant the NCR is barely functional. Not to mention that with Interplay's Fallout games, it is a known fact that they put the strongest faction of the game on all of their covers. Fallout 1 is the Brotherhood of Steel, Fallout 2 is the Enclave, and Fallout New Vegas is the NCR. Unlike Bethesda, who just plasters the Brotherhood on every one of their game covers. Politicals love their power and will do anything to keep it, so I could see how they would radio to the troops in the Mojave that Shady Sands was giving orders even after it was destroyed. Here he claims that the politicians were probably lying to the soldiers in Fallout New Vegas, and told them that Shady Sands was relaying orders after it had already been nuked. So this argument holds no water, because once again, if you knew anything about the NCR, then you would know that there are civilian radio stations and even public broadcasting stations. The assumption that something as big as the nuclear annihilation of the Capitol would remain classified is a claim that is so stupid it warrants no reply. Yet here I am, replying. But as Maximus said, it wasn't working out. And after the war for Hoover Dam, the leadership that remained absolutely could have collapsed from infighting. At the worst here, it could have devolved into a civil war, which would not result in total destruction of the NCR, as shown in the show. Also, keep in mind that the Boneyard, where you say Shady Sands is now, was the ruins of Los Angeles, which absolutely has skyscrapers. This really warrants no refutation, as the claim is made on top of a lore inconsistency. Shady Sands is not supposed to be in Los Angeles, and assuming Shady Sands in the show is based off of the one in-game, because that is obviously the case, the skyscrapers would have to be man-made post-war. Also, not that San Francisco went from a small rural town to a metropolis in only 60 years, with the rush of people moving west across the United States. He cites San Francisco's rapid expansion into a budding metropolis due to the gold rush. I'm not sure what the argument is here, considering Shady Sands is a metropolis without skyscrapers in Fallout 2, and keep in mind that despite the population, the NCR had pre-war tech too. They had the knowledge and likely some ability to construct large structures. The NCR having pre-war tech is largely irrelevant here. My argument in my original video was not that the NCR didn't have the know-how to build skyscrapers, it was that they did not have the need or the manpower to. Especially when their manpower was largely devoted to their rapid expansion, which is a core theme in Fallout New Vegas, and why the military stretched so thin in the Mojave. Also, you're comparing half of California to the entire mainland United States. Population doesn't matter when it comes to city, but population density does. Yes, this is my entire point. The population density of the New California Republic is not dense enough to require skyscrapers to be utilized. However, I do agree that it makes no sense, and it would be a bad decision to destroy Shady Sands. It confuses the narrative of the lore a lot, and it was already fairly convoluted. It also just doesn't make sense as to why Hank had access to a nuke. I'm not sure how the lore of the NCR was convoluted before the TV show, but okay, I agree. Hank's access to a nuclear bomb made no sense either. We have always been asking the question of, what has Vault-Tec been doing here? Why would they do this?
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
In the games and show, Vault-Tec is a private company with ties to several other companies and government agencies. The Enclave was a secret government agency that dipped their toes into literally everything. In Fallout 2, the President does tell us that a lot of the vaults were funded by the Enclave, and he even tells us what some of the experiments were. Now look into the world of life and the games. No government agency will 100% fund anything, because the government is a corporation at this point too. So yeah, it makes plenty of sense that Vault-Tec would go to other massive companies, especially ones that focus on research and development, and say, hey, you don't have to follow the rules of ethics in these areas because the world will have ended. So, no we haven't. We've known who is behind Vault-Tec's nefarious schemes since Fallout 2. No, we have not always been asking what Vault-Tec is doing here, because we already knew. While it is true that the Vault-Tec company is its own entity, it is not true that the Enclave was only involved in some of the Vault experiments, when in fact they were funding all of them. If you don't want to take my word for it, here's some evidence from the Fallout Wiki. You sure as hell won't get a source from this guy, as 90% of his responses have been pure conjecture, and his assertion that government agencies don't ever completely fund anything is complete nonsense. As for his claim about the government being a corporation, what does that even mean? It's a government of a country. I don't know if he's claiming it acts as or similar to a corporation, but it's not very clear when you just make a random point and present no evidence or don't elaborate on it at all. There are plenty of things that are completely funded by government agencies, and a simple Google search can tell you this. Also, the whole franchise has been a "capitalism sucks" message. It's a direct warning of consumerism and allowing our pockets to drive our lives. That's why Boston, from Fallout 4, looks the way it does. That's why the resource war happened. That's half the point of New Vegas. They aren't rewriting lore, they're expanding on some incredibly vague lore to make the show more of a narrative. So here he cites Boston in Fallout 4 on a video about the classic games. But I'll still entertain it nonetheless. What exact way does Boston look? You kinda have to say what it looks like instead of foolishly assuming everyone shares your interpretation. Why does it look destroyed? Probably because of the nuclear holocaust that happened. And the resource wars did not happen because of capitalism. If any argument can be made, it would be about what the resource wars are criticizing. It would be industrialization and the overconsumption of fossil fuels, instead of diverting to a more sustainable outlet for fuel. And before someone goes, "But industry is capitalism," no, it's not. Industrialization happened in every type of economic policy, notably in the Soviet Union under the communist dictator Joseph Stalin. He goes on to say, "That's half the point of New Vegas," and like all of his other points, does not elaborate or point to evidence of this. And I cannot think of any provocative anti-capitalism messaging in Fallout New Vegas, and since you cited nothing, I'll assume it's just incoherent rambling. But don't take my word for it. This is Tim Kaine, one of the lead developers for the first Fallout game. It's been speculated since the first game that Vault-Tec launched the nukes. The president wasn't alive when the bombs dropped. He doesn't know. Also, the Enclave's goal is to get all of America under its control. It'd be kinda stupid to say, yeah, we're like the whole reason you are in this apocalyptic shit show. It was never confirmed who launched the nukes. It's only been massively speculated to have been China, because we were invading them on their land, and they didn't have much of a choice. However, again, it's been speculated that Vault-Tec launched the nukes since Fallout 1. It's even stated in the Fallout Bible, I know it's only a semi-canon source, that it is not known who dropped the bombs. And honestly, it doesn't matter who dropped them. Now does it? You said that at the end of this section, so both of our points are mute. Well, if our points were mute, we wouldn't be able to hear them, now would we? And the notion that pre-war lore wouldn't matter to Wastelanders does not mean it shouldn't matter to the fans. Your reasoning for dismissing this lore inconsistency is moronic and terribly bad faith. I never said that the Enclave would tell everyone that they launched the nukes, first of all. I was simply saying it would make no sense to spew propaganda lies to mutants that you plan to eradicate anyway, that don't even care about the Great War 160 years after it ended. You also get the Enclave's motivations wrong, since you obviously have not played Fallout 2. Their intentions were not just to regain control over the US, it was to genocide every person who was not in their enclave or not protected from the effects of nuclear devastation. That's why they label Wastelanders as mutants and non-humans. As for the section about why China would have been the most likely for launching the nukes first, thank you for supporting my argument. As for speculation on Vault-Tec launching the nukes from Fallout 1, this is completely absurd. There was not widespread conversation around that at the time in the franchise at all. It was only prevalent after Bethesda's acquisition of the IP. The T-45 model of power armor was a rushed model. This was confirmed in Fallout 4 if I remember correctly. Things that are rushed will always have design flaws. Also, when the ghoul was speaking to the Brotherhood Knights, the round he was loading was a bullet specifically designed to pierce armor. It's known as a sabot round. The metal end is more or less a dart with fins. The wide bit on the bottom allows the round to seal the barrel and propel the round out of the gun. Once the projectile leaves the barrel, the outer part falls away, leaving a dense, quickly flying dart that is able to pierce most armors. This is the kind of ammunition that is used against tanks in the real world, although ours are exclusively artillery shells to my knowledge. Given the technological advancements of the Fallout world, especially in weaponry, it's not a stretch at all to assume they developed infantry sabot rounds. He was likely only telling the Brotherhood about the flaw in the design to scare and intimidate them. So I guess this guy didn't watch the show and didn't pay attention to my video, because in it, I misspoke and said T45 and corrected it on screen to T60. Another retcon that was added in is that the T45 has a major flaw apparently now, that you can one-shot. This refutation is really moot because you have the wrong model of power armor, and nothing you said applies to it. Yes, the T45 was a rushed model, but the T60, however, was not. It is the most advanced pre-war model. On the Sabbat round claim, never is it mentioned that we have managed to produce many Sabbat rounds that can be used in a revolver, and not to mention how convenient it is that the ghoul would just have some in his back pocket in case he were to go up against someone in super rare power armor that actually know how to use it. The final part is just pure cope. The flaw is real in the show, and not just a scare tactic, as he talks to Bud Askins about it pre-war in a flashback in the show. Keep in mind, this shot is from many miles away, compared to the gameplay comparison where you're directly over New Vegas. I understand the gripe, but sight diminishes a lot with extreme distance. I think that Hank is looking at Vegas from somewhere near Black Mountain, and even in-game, it doesn't look very big or populated from that far away. This is just incorrect, as they fixed it with the view that Lucy and the Ghoul have of New Vegas following in the footsteps of Hank in the newly made Season 2. And just for reference, I'll show what New Vegas looks like from the point of view of Black Mountain. Not to mention that the showrunners got the layout of Vegas wrong from this viewpoint as well. It's funny how at the beginning of this comment you dismiss my points as NCR fanboy mad, when all of your copium in this comment makes you come across as a Brotherhood of Steel, or more accurately, a Bethesda fanboy who will go to any lengths to justify Bethesda's portrayal of the Fallout universe. That about wraps it up for this video. If you enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I will be back to making video essays very soon, and my next one will be a video essay on one of the Fallout factions. And eventually I'll swing back around to Dark Souls and cover the Painted Worlds in Dark Souls 1 and 3. Thank you so much for watching all the way through, and remember, don't you dare go hollow. Water. It's funny how at the beginning... It's funny... It's fun... Who will go... Let me just redo the whole thing.